This video is brought to you by Patreon. By signing up on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon, you get early access to all content, as well as grab bags of valuable cards and amazing mats exclusive to patrons. You can help keep coverage for Paper Magic alive by showing your support on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon today.
Hello guys, and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic. We're here at Darkside for their FNM Pioneer event, and it's the finals. Yes, round 5. And the winner of this match is going to take home over $100 of store credit. Now, on the left, we've got Daniel Garrison, and you saw him in the previous video. He's piloting Azorius Control, and on the right is Rob Pisano playing Niv to Light, and this is the deck that he plans on using in the Pioneer 1K event, or so he's told me. So, let's see if he's got the goods to beat Daniel Garrison's Azorius Control. Now, not too exciting for turn 1, dropping lands and passing turns, but it looks like Daniel's got a sensor that he's planning on dropping as well, playing out a Field of Ruin over a tapped land. Rob seems to throw out a Sylvan Caryatid, paying 1 life for that mana confluence, but it's going to run straight into a sensor. And that's really what you want to do in these blue decks. You want to kind of keep them off their ramp, keep them kind of pinned down, and let things kind of just settle. So it looks like Daniel is kind of stuck here. He's got an Absorb in hand, but it doesn't look like he's got a way to play out that critical third color of mana. An Irrigated Farmland coming down tapped as Daniel pretty much crosses his fingers and hopes that Rob doesn't have a turn 3 play that's going to really lock down the board. But Rob's going to crack that Fabled Passage, play a Sun Petal Grove. It's going to come into play untapped. And it looks like he's going to grab an island. And those 3 colors of mana don't usually mean good things. What does Rob have? As he shuffles up, the anticipation is killing me. And I feel so bad for Daniel, who's sitting there with an Absorb in hand, wondering if this is going to be a make or break. And it looks like it's Teferi, Time Raveler, a card that really doesn't want to be seen against the Azorius Control deck, acting as a shutdown to all of the Azorius counter magic and instant speed plays that it can provide. And, I mean, yeah, sure, it drew Rob a card. Now Daniel just sitting there with his Absorb in hand, and it doesn't look great. And he's going to miss a land drop, but he's got to play that cast out to keep Azorius down. Or to keep Teferi down. But Rob has drawn he's drawn Bring to Light. And pumping out a Niv Mizzet just might be too much for him. Here's a Fabled Passage. He doesn't even need to use Bring to Light because he's got the Niv Mizzet. He finds the black mana he needs, takes 1 life from that mana confluence, although I guess he doesn't really need black mana, but, it's good to have. And let's see what Niv Mizzet can flip over. Now, you can get the nuts and get like 10 cards off this Niv Mizzet. And I've seen it happen to where there's almost a refilled hand of 7 cards. Now, unfortunately, Rob is only going to get 2 cards, a Slaughter Games and another Teferi. But Daniel is not happy to see either of those cards, because Teferi can do an instant speed Slaughter Games. I mean, sure, why not? But most importantly, Daniel is facing down a 6/6 flyer, and he's got to figure out some way to deal with that Teferi as well that's coming in. Now, he's got Supreme Verdict in hand, but he's missing a land drop, and it's been pretty hard on him the previous 2 turns. But here we go. A Hollowed Fountain. It's going to come into play untapped. Now, he can try and hold off that Absorb, and it looks like that's the plan, to try and get that Teferi. Because that seems like a bigger threat than 6 life coming in each turn. However, Rob could just say, you know what, okay, I'm going to just keep beating you for 6. I mean, Rob's not under any pressure here. But it looks like he is going to try and play out that Teferi. No, here comes Uro. Daniel says Uro resolves. It's going to gain Rob 3 life and draw him a card and allow him to put a land into play. And it looks like, oh, well, here's Teferi. If you let Uro go, surely Teferi can go through too. But Daniel is going to gain 3 life, casting Absorb and sending Teferi to the yard. And Rob plays his land for turn, but he's also going to start beating in for 6. And that's going to put Daniel down to 15 here. Daniel draws for turn. He's not looking happy here. This is not where he wants to be. He wants to be able to cast some counter magic on Rob's turn and be able to pump out a Supreme Verdict. But he's going to have to take a chance. Here's Supreme Verdict. That's going to kill off that... Okay, so Rob was correcting the mana cost of Supreme Verdict. It needs 2 white, but it's going to leave Daniel with a blue and a blue-white open. Rob, here's another Teferi. Daniel says, in response, opt? I mean, what could he draw? I mean, aside from just casting opt when he can. Teferi comes down. Now, Rob could be really tricky here and bounce the cast out and get his other Teferi trigger, but it looks like he's just going to +1 Teferi, get him up to 5, and now escape with Uro. Rob's going to go down to 17 from using double mana Confluence, but he's going to draw a card and go right back up to 20 and gain some life. And Uro is just... Honestly, I think it's one of the more critical spells that has come from Nib to Light, or come to Nib to Light from Theros, because gaining 3 life, drawing a card, ramping up is everything that this deck wants to do, and the 3 life is not nothing, mainly because it's so good against aggressive decks. And when you're getting pinned down by Rabble Masters and you don't have a lot of options, being able to turn a turn 3 into a turn 5 with Uro and gaining some life can really circumvent aggro's ability to kill you. So here comes Daniel. He's drawn another land for turn. And, oh man, he's in a rough spot here. He can't use counter magic because of Teferi's static ability. And he doesn't really want to play on his own turn either. He could do some stuff. I mean, that Castle Ardenvale is an infinite chump blocker, but Uro, just in play, is going to be drawing Rob a lot of life and ramping him up a lot of lands, and will put him further and further out of reach. Now, it looks like Daniel has Papa Teferi. Now, he could try and tuck the mini Teferi under, but it looks like he's just going to go for the Supreme Verdict because Uro doesn't have a lot of gas to escape again, and I guess he's going on the idea of... I don't know, man. He's got 2 cards in hand. He's got Supreme Verdict down, but Rob is kind of just chilling with that Nib to Light in hand, or Bring to Light in hand. It seems that's... Wait, he's also got Nib Mizzet too! Here, another Nib Mizzet. Daniel says, I can't beat that. I can't beat another one. Game 1 is going to go to Rob Pisano, and just 2 Nib Mizzets! That's hard for any deck to beat. But we're going to see if Daniel can get there in Game 2. Alright, here we go. It's Game 2. Now, I think for Rob's deck, he's probably going to want to chuck away those Sylvan Caryatids. A little bit of ramp isn't going to go a long way against Azorius Control. I think he's going to want more controlling options, like maybe Thought Erasure, maybe Thoughtseize, to try and get the good stuff out of Daniel's hand, mainly because Rob can refill a lot faster than Daniel can. Now, Daniel is going to be on the play. Both players are deciding to keep their opening hands, and here we go. Daniel starts off with the Hallowed Fountain tapped and passes back to Rob. Now, land selection for these kinds of decks like Rob, especially in 5-color, is very important. Yeah, you want to be on your multicolors for Azorius Control, but every land drop is crucial in these 5-color decks, especially like Nib to Light, and I'm sure a lot of EDH players know that as well. Now, here's something very interesting, and that's Voice of Resurgence. And Daniel's got to be going, oh crap, when he sees that land. And he's about to go Azorius Charm, and Rob's like, trigger on the stack? And Daniel's like, wait, hold up, I didn't realize that did that thing. Because Voice of Resurgence is incredible. It is such a strong card. And back when Azorius Control was a thing during Return to Ravnica and Theros, this coming down was one of the most devastating cards that you could see on turn 2 when you didn't have counter magic available. So Daniel was going to have to go to Fairy Time Reveler, bounce that Voice of Resurgence, and pass the turn, hoping to maybe find a Supreme Verdict. But Rob doesn't seem too bothered by it. He's going to drop that Temple of Epiphany, scry 1, and unfortunately Daniel doesn't have a Force of Will in hand, so that Voice of Resurgence is going to come down uncontested once more with its elk face taunting Daniel, saying, "Go on, play a spell, I dare ya." So Daniel draws for turn, looking at that Absorb so sadly. It's a great card. It's going to gain 3 life, but it's not 2 mana. And the Irrigated Farmland's going to come down, and Teferi's going to +1. And, I mean, is Daniel going to try and chew through more elemental tokens to try and put that Voice of Resurgence back on top? When it dies, it makes an elemental, and whenever you cast a spell on your opponent's turn, it makes an elemental. Oh, man. Seeing this card gets me giddy because I hated it. Oh, I hated this card so much when I was playing against it. I have, it's like that PTSD kind of card for me. And Rob's like, you know what? I don't even care. I don't even want you playing spells on my turn. Here's Teferi. And Daniel's like, well, I gotta absorb. And Rob's not too bothered by it because he's gonna make an elemental whose power and toughness is equal to the amount of creatures that Rob has in play. That Voice of Resurgence comes crashing in at Teferi, pings him down, and now Daniel has to figure out a way to get through all these voices. Voices in his head, whispering death and destruction to his life. And Rob is in a good position here. I mean, he doesn't really have to play out much, which is really good against Azorius Control, because not having to play stuff, keeping a good chunk of cards in hand, means that you don't really put yourself in the realm of, getting 2 for 1 or blown out by Supreme Verdict and counter magic. Daniel opts to opt on his own turn, and he's played his land for turn, and I'm a little curious as to why he didn't play the Castle Ardenvale. I mean, that card is really strong. He can take 4 damage, but at the end of his turn, if he doesn't have anything he needs to counter, he could make 1/1 chump blocker tokens, and now Rob is putting out that Uro. Such a strong card. God. Oh, man. Nib Delight is basically just the best multicolor that is in the format, basically. And it is so much fun to watch. I mean, here's Uro, here's Teferi, here's Voice of Resurgence. And if Niv Mizzet flipped them all off the top, they'd all go into his hand, and Rob would have a 6/6 flyer. So, wow. So Rob's going to grab an island with that Fabled Passage, and looks like he's got Thought Erasure in hand. And he's looking at that Overgrown Tomb, deciding whether or not he wants to put it in play untapped. Because if he plays out that Thought Erasure and just gets got by Censor, he's going to be really mad. So he's like, you know what? I'm not under any pressure. I'll pay the 2 life. Here's a Overgrown Tomb, casting Thought Erasure, and Daniel has Dream Trawler in hand, which he desperately wants to protect. So he's going to cycle that Irrigated Farmland, draw a card, and it's Mystical Dispute. It's not a bad card to find. So he's going to counter the Thought Erasure, but it's going to make another Elemental token, and now Daniel is facing down 5 damage to the face. He's going to go to 18, but those elemental tokens are going to quickly add up. Here's Daniel. He's got his 6th land. Now, Nib Delight doesn't do a lot in terms of interaction. It's got Teferi to bounce. It's got tempo. It mainly overwhelms you with card advantage. So Dream Trawler might be one of the most perfect cards that Daniel can play. He can block the elemental tokens and then start cracking back with a lifelinker that'll deal 5 every turn and gain him 5 life. The only problem with this plan is the fact that Niv Mizzet is a 6/6. And Rob has Bring to Light in hand. Now, Daniel's probably weighing all these options, and unfortunately, he doesn't really have much more options to go on. He doesn't have counter magic, and if he did, that elemental, that Voice of Resurgence, is going to keep popping out elementals who are going to keep growing and growing with every counter spell Daniel puts out. So, Daniel is just getting 2 for 1 for every counter spell, and that's really not where you want to be in this matchup. And it doesn't look like he has Supreme Verdict, but he's going to try and draw it by casting out that Dream Trawler, and that's going to put Rob on hold for a minute because he doesn't want to trade that Voice of Resurgence, and he doesn't want to trade his hard-earned elemental tokens, and he definitely does not want to allow Daniel to gain 3 life in any combat exchange. Rob taking a quick look over his sideboard, wondering what he tucked away. And it looks like a Selesnya charm was hanging out there. And, I mean, that would, I don't think that would do anything against Dream Trawler, because it would just, after it attacks, that's when it would be vulnerable to the Selesnya charm. And Daniel could just discard a card and make it hexproof. And it's not like Daniel has Force of Negation just in his deck anywhere, because it's not legal in Pioneer. So I think Bring to Light is the perfect card for this matchup, mainly because Dream Trawler would have a hard time getting through Niv Mizzet, and even then, that's only 1 Niv Mizzet out of Rob's arsenal. And Niv Mizzet could potentially draw Rob a bunch of cards just by casting it. So Rob is doing the math over here. Looks like here comes a Fabled Passage to grab another basic land. But the question is, how many basic lands does he have left in his library? I mean, the deck runs like 5, I think. 5 total, like 1 of each. And not nothing, but Rob has really pretty basic lands. I mean, if we're just going to talk about the basic lands here, Rob's basic lands are pretty on point. I love his choice on them. And I also love his choice on the dual lands. The original Rob Alexander shock lands are perfect. They are the best cycle of shock lands. Fight me. So, looks like Fabled Passage is going to come down, bringing out a mountain, and Rob, trying to optimize what colors of mana he has available, is going to cast Bring to Light, converging, bringing out Niv Mizzet, giving his library a good little shuffle before we see what comes on top. So here we go. Alright, spin the roulette wheel. How many cards is Rob going to draw off this Niv Mizzet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's give him a flip. Come on, Rob. Show us what you got. A whiff. Alright. I mean, I guess the same amount of variance that would allow Niv Mizzet to draw like 10 cards is the same one that would allow Niv Mizzet to draw 0. That's pretty cool. Oh man, Rob's got to be feeling terrible about that one. But here comes Daniel, swinging with Dream Trawler. It gets +1/+0, and another +1/+0 just for the attacks. And looks like Daniel's going to cycle the Azorius Charm rather than tucking Niv Mizzet to the top, which I can totally understand. You don't want to give Rob another shot at Niv Mizzet, especially to save the Dream Trawler. So Dream Trawler and Niv Mizzet are going to trade kind of unfairly here because Daniel's able to go up a card for it, and he's going to gain 6 life. And Rob drawing for turn, and it looks like a Sylvan Caryatid. But on the flip side, Rob has Uro in his graveyard, and Uro has been just waiting to escape, and it looks like that is going to be the plan here. Rob tapping his mana correctly and grabbing up Uro as his graveyard gets completely chewed through. Looks like he's deciding. I mean, sometimes there's a card that you really want to keep in your graveyard. And here comes Uro. It's going to gain Rob 3 life, putting him up to 24, drawing him a card, allowing him to put a land into play tapped or untapped if he wants. And now here comes the damage. 2, 4, 10 damage aimed right at Daniel's face, because those elementals are equal to the power and toughness of the amount of creatures that you have in play. And 2 of them is kind of rough. Daniel has done a pretty good job of not just getting blown out by Voice of Resurgence, and I applaud his efforts so far. However, I think he really tapped his lands wrong, because he could have just made a 1/1 creature token and chump blocked one of the elementals. He would have still taken 6 damage, but he would have not given Rob just another elemental token and wasted a card from his hand. And that's the thing is, Castle Ardenvale is a very underrated land. It's a very underrated card in general, especially for control, because usually you have tons of mana to work with. So now Daniel is going to go through a dig through time. This is going to give Rob another land to work with, and it looks like he's doing the full-on delve rather than paying the mana for. I mean, I guess he could want to cycle a card from his hand as well. And he has Censor. So here we go. Top 7. Main thing he needs is he really needs Supreme Verdict. He desperately needs Supreme Verdict. And unfortunately, it may be in the stack. Doesn't look like it, though. There's an Azorius Charm and a Censor and a Monastery Mentor. And a Thassa's Intervention as well. And those seem to be the picks. Thassa's Intervention and Monastery Mentor. And he's going to cycle Censor at end of turn. Alright. Here we go, Daniel. You got maybe 1 turn to figure out your life total. Now he's drawn Absorb, which might help buffer the life a little bit. And they're going to use a die to kind of reference how strong these elementals are. They are currently 5/5 elementals. Now the question is, how does Daniel get through this turn? I mean, he's facing down 15, 17, 23 damage. And if he makes 1 token blocker with the Castle Ardenvale, chump blocks the Uro, he'll go down to 1. I think he needs to really find a... He needs to find a Supreme Verdict. And it has eluded him this entire game. So here comes Monastery Mentor, which is going to, I guess, act as a chump blocker against Uro. But he's still facing down 17 damage. I mean, maybe the Monastery Mentor will prevent the Voice of Resurgence from attacking, and then he can just chump block the Uro, take 15, and go to 3, and then pass his intervention? Or hold up Absorb? Gain 3 life? Make another elemental token? Now, thankfully, Rob hasn't drawn super well this game, but Voice of Resurgence, that does a lot of work. So here we go. Rob lining up attacks. Here's 15, 21 damage. Trigger. Uro draws Rob a card, and he's going to be able to put a land into play. And he's got plenty of land, so... I mean, yeah, sure, I'll play another land. Now, that's one heckin' draw. That is a bring to light. Oh, man. If Daniel wasn't having a bad day so far, it just got a lot worse. Because even if he draws the Supreme Verdict, he's going to have to face a bring to light next turn, which could fetch out Nymph Mizzet. Now, Daniel is going to blocks, or he's deciding on whether or not he wants to go to blocks. He's got Thassa's Intervention in hand. Maybe he wants to try and draw 2 cards and make it another blocker? But then the 2 that get through are going to be even bigger because another elemental token comes into play? I mean, that's the thing about Voice of Resurgence, is that one spell that Daniel casts on Rob's turn means a pump of 3 damage to his current team. But Daniel's got to find a Supreme Verdict. He knows he's got to find a Supreme Verdict. But is now the time to do it. So he's going to cast Thassa's Intervention. Looking at the top 2, he draws them because those are the only 2 options. 2 blockers happen. And it looks like they're trying to evaluate how much damage is going through. Rob definitely didn't miss the trigger because here we go. And the total amount of damage that's coming in to Daniel is going to make them 6 6s. Daniel is going to take 12. He's going to go down to 6. Oh, wow. And he's tapped out. So Rob has free reign to just do whatever he feels like doing. Is he really going to go for the Bring to Light? Daniel found the Supreme Verdict. Oh, man. And Rob grabs Niv Mizzet? Oh, this could just be the most huge... Wait, Slaughter Games. Research your library. Doesn't say creature. He can cast anything. He can cast Slaughter Games. He's gonna go for Slaughter Games. He names Supreme Verdict. Oh! Rob just next level playing. Rather than grabbing the Niv Mizzet, he goes for Slaughter Games and just outright wins the game. Now, this is a pilot you know is good, and I love watching Rob Pisano play because I was on the Niv Mizzet. I was on, alright, you know what, Niv Mizzet and try and just draw a bunch of cards, but that's because I'm a greedy player. I want to draw more cards than I care about winning the game. But Rob Pisano playing expertly and showing just how strong this deck can be, and wow, he's going to take this win. He's going to take over $100 home in store credit. Well, not really home. It's going to be at the store. But we're going to see Rob Pisano again next week at the Pioneer 1K event. But that's going to be it for us this time on Phat Pack Magic. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell because we've got a Pioneer 1K event coming, and you really don't want to miss that. And make sure you leave a like. Not just for me, but for my players too. And stay tuned because we've got some really cool stuff coming in the pipeline. I heard you guys might like some of this new stuff, competitive EDH or CEDH as it's called. But until next time, may